Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. What is going on, 49er faithful? Jason Aponte with a live on a Friday, joined by Andrew Pasquini at the bottom and Richard Madrid to my right. There we go. How are you fellas doing? We'll start with Rich.
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Pasquini, what's up with you, man? I like that Michigan hat, and I'm sure that Rich Madrid likes it a lot.
Oh, I heard Rich Madrid was on the stream, so I had to shout out Jim Harbaugh, who gets to beat USC every year once again. I'm so excited. My favorite tradition in sports, Jim Harbaugh beating USC.
Well, for everybody that's here, if you are here, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell when we go live. A lot of good stuff coming up, especially with training camp going on. But PFF drops another list, and it doesn't seem like we can get away from talking about these lists and their opinions and things like that. So it comes to the top rosters list, and suspiciously out of the 10, there's a certain team from the Bay Area that is excluded, and of course that's sent a lot of people up in arms. I've got questions, and I'm sure that many of us do. Let's start with you, Pasquini. What's your initial thought on the group that's there? And then we'll go to Rich, and then I'll give my thoughts.
The Eagles? The Eagles over the Niners? That's the first one that jumped out to me, honestly, was the Eagles. But Jason, I really liked your tweet where you said not even going to say anything, and it spurred a live stream, which I'm excited about, because anytime I can talk with football, I'm happy. But this list is interesting. I don't have any qualms about the Bills at 1 or anything like that. But then after that, it kind of gets very suspicious, especially like the Niners off the list, the Broncos. I know Rich might not be as high on the Broncos as I am. The Broncos not being on the list.
Especially not with Fangio around.
Especially with no Fangio, no way in hell. But also, too, something I noticed as well is 6 AFC teams to 4 NFC teams. I believe I had that backwards now. Never mind. That was not the point I was going to make. But yeah, it's a very interesting list off the top of my head, especially with the Browns in the top 10 as well. You don't even know what their quarterback situation is at this time. It's an interesting list, Jason. I'm all over the place with it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty funny that I said not even going to say anything, but saying not even going to say anything is literally saying something. So kind of put my foot in my mouth in that one. Rich, Bills number 1, Bucks 2, Chargers 3, Rams 4, Packers 5, Browns 6, Eagles 7, Bengals 8, Chiefs 9, Dolphins 10. What do you think?
Why are the Dolphins even in there? I don't know. I saw that list yesterday. I had a coughing fit. I don't get it, man. The Dolphins shouldn't be in there. And the Chargers ahead of the Rams and Packers. I don't know. I don't see it. I mean, the Chargers added Khalil Mack, but over the Rams, come on. I don't know.
That's the thing I think that a lot of people had issues with, was certain teams over certain places. And I think that the Green Bay Packers outrage is a little overstated, in my opinion. Overstated. Yeah. Because I get you lost Devontae Adams. I get that. And I get that there's a lot of question marks at the wide receiver position. Alan Lazard looks like the wide receiver 1. Randall Cobb is there. Christian Watson, we don't really know too much about. Amari Rodgers is going into his second year. But that doesn't necessarily push me to a place to say that the Packers have a bad roster. Their defense is stacked. And you know what's the really good thing about the Packers is they have a quarterback that can kind of mask those deficiencies on that side. I don't really have too much of a problem with the Packers being there at this point. I think that a lot of people were overly upset about that. I guess the team that jumps out at me immediately is the Dolphins. And for that reason, I ask why. I understand they upgraded their offensive line, and Teron Armstead is a massive upgrade for them. Tyreek Hill, those are big upgrades. And think about the wide receiver group. Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Preston Williams, and, Gesicki. They've got pass catchers that are good there. The Dolphins is the one that kind of shook me up a little bit. Andrew, anything to say there?
Yeah, and I think the excitement of Tyreek Hill maybe overrates them because people really like Tyreek Hill. I know they reworked the offensive line. The hard one, though, too, kind of the quarterback position as well, is I don't think – because if you look at each of these teams, save the Eagles and maybe save the Browns because, Deshaun Watson's probably not playing, you're looking at every team with top-tier quarterbacks and a pretty good quarterback in Joe Burrow. Tua doesn't fit in this list, and maybe that's what held, because I know we look at this from a Niners standpoint as well, as maybe that's what held the Niners out of this list. We don't know what Trey Lance is going to be. Who knows? I don't know, but the Dolphins are definitely one, and it's funny too because Mike McDaniel down there is trying to build the roster a little bit like what the Niners have, and I still feel like they're pretty far behind the Niners, at least in terms of depth as well. The Dolphins are very interesting. It just kind of feels like that was the one where it's like, okay, this is the team that's going to get the attention and get those retweets. And I think that's kind of what worked, honestly.
Yeah. And Jeffrey, real quick to answer this question, I hope Grant still messes with Jason. He's goated. I spoke to Grant literally earlier today. Just because you don't see us on shows doesn't mean that we're not good. And that's the most that I can say about anything. This is the last time I'm addressing anything like this. So stop asking me about it. We're fine. I literally spoke to this man a few hours before I got on here. Everything's good. Okay. I just want to make sure that's clear so people can stop asking, not only in my comments on these live streams as well, too. Rich, what do you think? What's the team that shocks you the most on this list that the 49ers could probably jump up?
I mean, right away, the Browns, the Eagles, and the Dolphins. The quarterback situation, I'm not sold on Tua. Who's the Browns quarterback this year? Nobody even knows.
Jacoby, baby.
I mean, when he's played, he's
fine.
He hasn't been bad, but he's still been a backup, his whole career.
You can win with Jacoby. He's just boring.
Exactly. And the Eagles, I mean, take those three teams out of there maybe one of them can stay. But the 49ers should absolutely be in there. You can't tell me that a team with Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward, Fred Warner, and Debo and Kittle and Trent Williams and second-year quarterback that everyone thinks is going to, has a pretty good shot at like MVP or something, there's no way that isn't a top 10 roster with those 7 or 8 that I just mentioned. No, what other team has that kind of core caliber of player at those positions, at all those positions? Not a lot of those teams don't.
What's mind blowing to me too, especially with the Eagles, is like you're trying to tell me an NFC East team has a better roster than the Kansas City Chiefs? What? Like the Eagles were the one that jumped out to me first. First one to me.
Let me make the case for the Eagles.
Okay.
Right? Okay. AJ Brown joins. That's really big. They signed somebody that I felt, besides the guys that we all love, shout out to Kwaski Tart, man, and shout out to him and his $2.5 million. And some 49er fans believe that was too much money to pay a safety, which is absolutely ridiculous when you think about that. But they signed a guy that I felt kind of flew under the radar to pair with somebody who was already a shutdown corner, and that's James Bradbury.
Mm-hmm.
So James Bradbury, Darius Slay, and now Jaquiski Tart on the back end, that's a hell of a secondary. And that's a hell of a secondary that you're going to have to go up against and throw against that has a good pass rush. So the Eagles, who have already had their core intact, they have their quarterback. Dallas Goedert's a hell of a player. Now you add A.J. Brown. You're talking about this defense, and you're talking about like Fletcher Cox and those guys on the front end. The Eagles have a squad. And in terms of like a deep roster, they probably have the best roster in the NFC East, and that's why they're on this list. And that's not the worst thing in the world. The issue that I have and why the 49ers are left off this list, you're talking about a team that their one deficiency on defense you could probably say was secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've addressed that. Charvarius Ward is going to start next to Emmanuel Mosley. And God help all of you if Jason Verrett, is anywhere near the guy that we saw in 2020. Then you have Jimmy Ward. The real unknown is Talanoa Hufanga. The best linebacker core in this league that, according to PFF and according to our hearts.
Yes.
Front seven. You're talking about, so defense is stacked. Offensive line has question marks. They're deep. We just don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about a wide receiver group that PFF just came out today and ranked number 6 with Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Juwan Jennings, let alone Gray, McLeod. Go ahead, Rich.
That's the thing, though, is like they keep coming out with all these position group rankings where the 49ers have a top 10 group here, top 10 group there, but they don't have a top 10 roster.
Right. And that's –
I mean, I don't get it. Like, is the quarterback the unknown for them? If it is, and why are the Dolphins there and why are the Eagles there? Because Hurts still has a lot of development to go through.
And the Browns as well, because
the Browns,
this is 2022. They're not going to have Watson.
Yeah. There's Watson is looking more and more every day like he's not going to play this season. And I saw somebody theorize today that he may never play for the Browns at all.
Maybe.
So how did they get in the second half of the top 10? But the 49ers have all these position groups that you can rank in the top 10, and they don't have a top 10 roster. I mean, let's go through the holes. And you kind of just did, but Hufanga at safety, that's an unknown, but that's not such a big unknown that you don't you kind of know what you're getting there. And the unknown for me is what's the scheme going to look like with him back there? Is it, are they going to change a little bit up where they have to play a little more single high to hide his deficiencies? We don't know. It could head that way, but we don't know. He could develop into this incredibly smart player that, maybe they found a gem with. We just, there's unknowns there for sure. And the offensive line, center and left guard is probably the biggest unknown there. I mean, where else are the holes? Where else are the unknowns? I don't see it.
I could see maybe running back being considered one just because outside of Elijah Mitchell, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But outside of Elijah Mitchell,
but these guys, see, that's the thing, man. These guys at PFF know this. They know that Shanahan can plug and play anybody he wants back there and get the.
They literally write it in all their articles.
Yes.
In all their articles, they write it. It's like, draft this.
They hate running back. They're not deciding that's because they're not deciding they don't have a top 10 roster because of the running back situation, because PFF hates running backs. So, they apparently hate paying linebackers, but I just where can you point to a deficiency on this team that isn't safety or a couple spots on the offensive line?
And how much of that can be cleared up because Jimmy Ward is the eraser and literally good at those things. And now the 49ers have two guys, right?
I would argue Fred Warner's the eraser, but
who? Fred Warner. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But Jimmy Ward he's very good. People look at Jimmy Ward and think, well, he doesn't have any turnovers, but teams aren't really throwing his way. I mean, you get turnovers by quarterbacks challenging you and throwing at you and getting you the targets. Teams didn't target Ward and Tart last season because why would you do that when you could pick on Ambry Thomas?
Exactly. And Xavier Howard, who has all these picks, he gets thrown at a lot. And the same thing with
gets thrown at a lot.
Trevon Diggs. Diggs is giving up all these yards, but he has all those interceptions. So, again, context is needed. And, again, especially now that you're thinking about this 49ers team, you're thinking about the fact that this secondary, for me, is the best secondary that the 49ers have had. And let's just, if I'm crazy, reel me in, since Deion Davis, Tim McDonald, and Merton Hanks, right? Like, Carlos Rogers, Chris Culliver, Dante Whitner, Deshaun Goldson. Look, I'm not taking away from the safeties. Those corners were kind of suspect. I mean, they got abused when Justin Smith got hurt. Exactly. Right. So the 49ers have done a large job of on the back end covering those guys with pass rush. Now you have that pass rush, and now you've got Charvarius Ward, who has the lowest completion percentage allowed since 2019, Emmanuel Mosley, who was the cornerback 1 on this team, Jimmy Ward, who is as solid as it gets, and then you just talked about it, Fred Warner on the back end, Azeez Al-Shaair is improving in coverage, and it's hard to not get excited about this secondary and also not put them in a place where possibly this team could exceed last year's defense, especially if Drake Jackson is any semblance of what we think he can be, or if he's anywhere near what D Ford was on obvious passing downs.
Well, that was the one area that they graded the worst on the roster when they did their rankings, was they graded the secondaries like the 16th best in the league.
But that tier that they put them in was in ascending units. So the 3 tiers, the first tier was where do you throw the ball? The second tier was minor mistake or minor issues. And then the third one was ascending units. And then in that little synopsis that they put was this team could absolutely outshoot this pass defense in terms of where we have them ranked. And they acknowledged that. So again, yes, it's fair to, say, hey, we don't know what the secondary is going to be. But it's also fair to say you have this optimism with this team that they could be much better than they're being graded right now. So I didn't have too much of an issue with that. Everybody thinks I have a bone to pick with PFF on everything. I only have a bone to pick with like when you disrespect Azeez Al-Shaair on your linebacker list, or like when you put them in this secondary list and you put Jason Verrett at nickel corner. I don't have a problem with PFF. Just let's talk about our team correctly.
And even too, you guys are talking the nitty gritty of the roster and all that stuff, the depth and the holes as well. It's even too, how many top 5 at their position players do the 49ers have compared to the rest of this list? Like if we're just talking about the top of the roster as well, I don't know how many teams can be, because I mean, you look at offensive line, they have top 1 tackle, Trent Williams. They have a top, I mean, I don't know if you guys top 5 receiver, offensive weapon, whatever you want to call him. Deebo Samuel, Fred Warner's a top 5 linebacker, Nick Bosa's a top 5 pass rusher, Jimmy Ward's a top 5 safety, and like not even just the holes you're talking about. The Niners don't have a ton of those. They also have a ton of top end talent on this roster, and I don't see any of these teams really having that much spread across that many positions on the rest of this list. I mean, obviously a lot of them have top tier talent. It's just the Niners have so much of it on the team spread out on both sides of the ball that it's, to me, asinine that the Niners aren't on this list.
I tried not to say anything about it, but me not saying anything about it and retweeting it in a way is saying something about it. But
publicly saying I'm not saying anything about it. Privately, hey, we got to get a chat going here.
Right. I mean, but here's the thing, and here's another thing. We have discrepancies with the way the PFF ranks things, but it's July 1st.
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out ways to come up with content and give PFF credit.
You're giving it to us,
yeah, right. And exactly they're sparking discussion.
They don't know what to do either. They're saying all this stuff is based on all their data models and whatever other super secret things they do over there. The
top secret CIA FBI data is, I believe, the word you use, Rich.
The model that was ripped apart by our guy Akash Anavarathan, who took it upon himself to pull that model apart. I'm sure Rich Madrid was watching that exchange and just smiling from far.
I watched him rip that guy PFF Eric apart. He needed it.
And again, PFF as a group isn't deserving of blame. It's the individual people that are doing these lists.
It's a handful, maybe half a dozen guys there that just really just get under everybody's skin and like a few of the guys follow me and I think they're pretty cool. Seth Galina, I think he's one of their best contributors.
He's good. We
follow each other and I've had multiple conversations with him about quarterbacking and things like that. And he's a really good resource and guy to talk to. And he's really nice. And we'll just sit and talk with you for hours about ball, man. I mean, and then there are other guys like PFF Eric will just say, well, you didn't play college football. There's no way you can possibly know.
You didn't sit the bench in high school football, man. Yeah. I know a little bit more than you. Like you sitting the bench is the equivalent of me watching the game from the stands. It's literally like we had the same amount of action.
if you're going to throw out that you played at a higher level than a lot of people after that as some form of expertise, I'm automatically going to dismiss you.
Yeah.
I can't wait till I start dropping that on people. I played 3 weeks
a lot
of
of coaches in the NFL that never played football.
Right. I can't wait to use that like on somebody else. Yeah, I played 3 weeks of high school football in training camp, and you know what? I know more than you. That
Literally bar for bar. That is me. I was a 5'8", 165-pound receiver. 3 weeks in camp, ran a slant route over the middle, got my head taken off by a 6'4" linebacker. I was done. It was a wrap. But I know more than people who haven't played football ever. So,
hey, man, Jason, you dealt with this last year. You guys that went to camp every day, and no one was like, really giving you guys the credit you deserve for reporting what you observed. They were only going off of Mr. Spreadsheet because he had a fucking spreadsheet. Sorry, I don't mean to drop the F-bomb here.
Nah,
but
you're good.
He got more people. He got probably more clicks and views with this because he was charting things that he didn't know what he was charting than people who were just expressing what they observed.
Right. And that's the thing is context matters, right? Like there's no sort of data that can show the fact that Trey Lance jumped out to a large lead in this quarterback race at camp, and no one can dispute this. But when the 49ers asked him to do things that Jimmy Garoppolo was very comfortable in doing, and he wasn't necessarily as comfortable in doing, it leveled the playing field so that people couldn't, make or automatically say, well, Trey's got to start. That's why there's so many people that were like, well, Peter Schrager said that Trey was jumped out to a big lead. He did. But unless you were there, you didn't realize what the 49ers were doing. The 49ers never really wanted Trey to start. It felt like they wanted him to work on things that Jimmy Garoppolo was good at, just so they could give Jimmy Garoppolo a chance to get back. Here's the day that really it took hold in my mind. Trey Lance hit that pass to Trent Sherfield that everybody saw and everybody was excited about. And, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have such a good day that day. Jimmy Garoppolo stayed after practice and we were all there. And guess what he was working on? Throwing the ball down the field. So don't tell me that like there was nothing that was going on in terms of that. And there's a lot that goes into all that stuff.
And it came out, at the end of the season that they were considering starting Trey if he hadn't had that injury. So it was a lot closer and it was a lot closer and there was a lot more context that was missing than people realize. Which is fine. I mean, they told us from, day one when he was drafted that Jimmy was probably going to be the starter and that was going to be the end of it. But, there's no way that they went through camp and were like, maybe we made a mistake, because they were considering it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. But that's not to derail this whole PFF thing and the roster thing, but this is the kind of context that doesn't ever get added.
Well, to bring it back to the roster, were you aware that there was an article?
Yes.
I was not. This roster, before I'll pass to Andrew. This roster thing, after I read the article, was based on their grades. Yes, so it's based off. I'm kind of going over it. The Niners are 13th, by the way. Mm-hmm. The Niners are 13th. Outside of the top 10, it's Saints at 11, Ravens at 12, and then the 49ers at 13. With the 2022 NFL Draft and Free Agency, we're breaking down each team's roster using the PFF database with an eye toward the projected starters. We look at both the PFF grades from the 2021 season and a more comprehensive assessment of each player's career using both PFF grades and statistics. I don't know what that means, but I'm looking at the Niners projected lineup and I have some qualms, dare I say. Darqueze Dennard is listed as the third corner. Tarvarius Moore is the second safety, and Dre Greenlaw is the second linebacker. Samson Ebukam is also the second edge rusher, which I don't have any issues on that. So that's what they have as the Niners starting offense or defense, at least. I don't think Dennard's going to be the third corner. I don't think Moore is going to be the second safety. Greenlaw might be the second linebacker. I'm not going to argue that one too much, but that's where the Niners have. That's where they have the Niners.
That's a better shot at happening than the other two.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Is I could see a world where Greenlaw is the second linebacker. I don't know if I see Denard or Moore starting at safety or corner.
Here's the question, Andrew, and this is what Rich was talking about. This is what Rich was talking about. You put out a list for one group and the secondary group, and if you looked at the secondary and where they're ranked as 16, it's Emmanuel Mosley, Charvarius Ward, nickel corner Jason Verrett, which that makes absolutely no sense. Jason Verrett would never play nickel corner. You don't want to put that man's body into like the run defense portion of it. He's a boundary corner. Emmanuel Mosley is more equipped to play nickel corner. And then Jimmy Ward is the starter, and then Talanoa Hufanga is the other starter. Where's the discrepancy in that? And then it's like, can you guys get on the same page as to who it is that you are going to be starting?
A lot of these guys, they don't work. They're a lot of them are work from home. They don't have a lot of collaboration because if you don't live in Southern Ohio, then you don't ever stop by PFF for meetings and things like that. I mean, a lot of them are remote workers. They probably don't collaborate a lot. I mean, Tarvarius Moore is the second safety.
Yeah.
Dude didn't even play last year. Like what?
So I'm also going through just some of it. I wanted to read the Browns just to see what they said because I was going to see if there was a I was going to see if there was any
people that with real jobs that work from home.
I wanted to see if you mentioned anything about
PFF isn't a real job.
I wanted to see if they mentioned anything about the Deshaun Watson situation to see if if Deshaun doesn't play, there's no mention of Deshaun Watson in his explanation.
Yeah, and that's probably because there's nothing that's happened. I mean,
I guess that's fair. Yes, that's fair.
I get not wanting to speculate, but they're going to go with the active players that are there, I guess. But the writing is on the walls. I mean,
yeah, like I would feel like you would at least mention like biggest weakness, like, hey, Deshaun Watson might not play, and quarterback might be a big question mark because Baker Mayfield's going to get traded, something like that along those lines, but not even a mention.
And again, you guys have to get on the same page. If Jason Verrett's a nickel corner, then like make that like, and that's wrong. Again, it's all right. Here's my thing, Rich. Here's my thing, Andrew. When I write articles, whatever it is for whoever it is, right? Like if I write something for 49ers Gold Mine, if I write something for back in the day 49ers Web Zone, it takes me a long time to put those articles together. You know why? Because I want to get every single thing right in terms of what I'm talking about. And again, that linebacker list pissed me off because it was, they're at the top of this list because Dre Greenlaw came back at the end of the year. The reason the 49ers linebacker group is number one is because of Azeez Al-Shaair.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is Azeez Al-Shaair, Dre Greenlaw, and Fred Warner cannot be topped by anyone. Now, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw can be topped. Fred Warner and Azeez Al-Shaair can be topped. But Fred Warner, Azeez Al-Shaair, and Dre Greenlaw is the reason your linebacker group is at the top. No mention of the man who played 13 games, let alone had his best game when he had to wear the green dot and call all the plays in Seattle, is an oversight. And it lets me know you don't have a pulse on this team in any way. Don't tell me what you project later on in the year, because again, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, I'm sorry guys, and you might want to kill me, that's not the top two linebacker duo in the league. The Bucks could start Levante David and Devin White tomorrow, and I would pick them over both those guys. So that's the thing. It's for me, how much do you know about this team? You don't cover this team. How much do you look at this team? And that's the problem I had more than anything. They were ranked number one. Get Rich.
That's even worse though, because they do have guys that work for them that cover certain teams, and PFF Jeff covers the 49ers for them. So are they talking? Is he feeding them information about the team, or is his whole job to just report what PFF reports about the 49ers? I don't know, but I mean, I've talked with Jeff. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy, PFF Jeff Deeney, and he's a lot more in tune with the team than a lot of people are, that cover their own teams and stuff. So how much he's being like asked, like, are these guys that cover the specific teams, are they being asked about any of this stuff? Are they collaborating with them? I don't know, because I would say no, because if you look at the roster projections and they're picking people like Darqueze Dennard and Tarvarius Moore as the depth players that could step in and they're a snap away from stepping in. That's not right. We know that's not right, and you can be a casual fan and know that that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the other issue I have too is them using the PFF grading in 2021, because now Trey Lance, who played two and a half games,
they're using his grade to use that against him
for 2.5 games, right? And so, like, I get it that they have this grading system that they love so much that, Mike Tirico and on Sunday nights that we've been waiting all day for, it tells us when they announce the starting 11, and we're grading Trey Lance because he had a game where the Niners pretty much ran him the whole game, and a game against the Houston Texans for a 59.9, and so that's going to be held against him, and that's a little perplexing to me, because you can't. The thing is you're judging this off of 2021, and as they said, let me find their PFF branded wording here just to make sure I get it right.
The proprietary wording.
Yes, and a more comprehensive assessment of each player's career using the PFF grades and statistics. So what you're telling me is it's based off of the past. That means there's no room for a projection or a growth in this whole model, and it's very confusing, because a lot of what the Niners' potential in 2022 has to do is that potential and growth. And I know you can't necessarily judge the talent of a roster off of that, but it needs to at least be included at some point, because if we're judging Trey Lance off of 2 starts last year, I don't think that's necessarily a fair thing to do.
And the other thing is what people don't understand, and I've explained many times, is PFF's grading is subjective. And what I mean by that is I did data collection for a little while for them, and what they do is they send you broadcast footage, and you have to label each player in their spot. It's pretty easy to label cornerbacks. They're in their spots, CB, CB. But one step from one guy is LEO, and one step the other way or backwards is OLB. And then what they do is they take that data collection, they take that, and then they use that, and they send it to 10 people who grade it on their own, and then they send it to a group of people who aggregate that grade and then come up with that. Look, Trent Williams is the best left tackle in football. I don't need PFF's grade to tell me that. And it's nice that we hold that up, that the fact that he was the highest graded player in the history of PFF, that's cool, right? And that's good for our narrative. But at the same time, PFF grade is largely subjective. Not largely, it's completely subjective. Yeah. So for me, when you see a player graded, like we had this discussion last preseason, I believe someone got a 0 from the 49ers. And we looked at we asked the people, like, how does he get a 0? What did he do? Well, one, you don't know the scheme, you don't know the protections, and this is where Rich is going to come in. You don't know the protections, you don't know what the play is and things like that. And I had my own back and forth with PFF. Was, they gave Jason Verrett a touchdown that was allowed in that Green Bay game in 2020. And all he did was line up over the guy, and then he went into his zone, and that guy was like got open on a touchdown, and then they gave him the. So again,
against the Packers,
right? Against the Packers, like it's.
You having that conversation?
Yeah, like it's the film doesn't line up.
Yeah, and what they didn't make clear from that conversation up front was that but these were fantasy. Like stats or whatever, not actual things that we attributed to the players on our other side or whatever. That's what the explanation was given, was like it was mainly for fantasy purposes, but it wasn't all clear. It wasn't at all clear when you looked at the website that was for fantasy purposes. It was legitimately scored.
Well, And then the other thing, the other thing, Rich, is even if it is for fantasy, I play fantasy for money. So let's just say I see Jason Verrett give up 2 touchdowns the week before. I'm going to start my wide receiver 1 over him because he's giving up all these touchdowns. And then what does Jason Verrett do? Lock that man down. So for me, it's disingenuous to, I don't care whether it's for fantasy or whether it's for real football, is you have to call this like fairly down the line. The film doesn't lie. The film never lies. And I'm like, this isn't just because Rich is on here. Film never lies, right? Like film never lies. It's on there for you. I was confused because one, I watched the game overall, and then I looked at the PFF stats and it said he gave up 2 touchdowns. And I'm like, wait a minute. Jason Verrett just gave up that 1 touchdown on the scramble drill to MVS, which he did. And then I look back, and the play that they attributed that to was a play that Tarvarius Moore misplays the safety, and boom, the ball's over his head, and then Jason Verrett gets dinged for that. So again, PFF is a valuable tool, like in terms of how you evaluate, right? Like you have to watch the games. There's analytics that are good. There's some good stats in there, but it's not like when PFF says something, you got to be like, well, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Like it's done. And I think that's what we're talking about when it comes to this grading thing. It's so subjective, especially when you think about it in this way.
Go ahead, Rich.
I don't want to like completely dump on them like we do publicly almost every day, but you know, they are good for good for some things. Like I utilize their stats, some things that you can't find anywhere else.
Well, and that's what I do like about PFF, and I think I've said it before, and I'll kind of keep saying it, is the PFF grade I think is a starting point to if a player.
I don't care.
Well, that's another way to say it as well, right? Is don't care about them. But I just think I feel like a lot of people look at these grades and say, oh, this player's playing well based off of this one number. And I think what it is you need to look beyond those numbers. And I think PFF, as Rich was saying, a lot of great stats behind that number. It's the place I go to when I want to find just super tight stats. I mean, the one I was looking at is what's the ADOT, the average depth of target, things like that. I think PFF does a great job on that. Rich, really quick, I wanted to read the X factor for 2022 paragraph they have on the 49ers. I think it's obvious. I think it's very obvious who the X factor is for the 49ers in 2022. It's Trey Lance, right? And I just want to get your opinion on especially the last sentence here, Rich. It's difficult to go anywhere else here other than Trey Lance, who's expected to take the reins from Jimmy Garoppolo. Whether or not the 49ers are able to work out a Garoppolo trade prior to the season, Lance saw limited action with just 2 starts as a rookie last season, managing just the 59.9 PFF grade and 179 offensive snaps. Here's the last sentence, and this is where I want to get your opinion. The floor is lowered with Lance compared to a Garoppolo-led offense, but there's also reason to be excited about what the offense could look like with Lance's arm talent and rushing ability. Is the floor lowered with Lance over Garoppolo, in your opinion?
Why? I'm trying to figure out like why they would say that.
To lead with a negative as well, right? Like I just I have a lot of issues with this. Lance saw limited action, so he's admitting that Lance didn't play a lot, but then managing just like it's the negative language that gets me a little bit. They could have.
Yeah, it's completely
objective. Is that the word you're looking for?
Subjective.
Objective, subjective, whatever.
I don't know. It's like backhanded. It's like, you know, they could be good, but you know, they have a low ceiling. Like, why do they have a low ceiling with him? And no one has been able to answer this. Mm-hmm. We've gone over this all off season. What I've shown what Lance is good with. I've shown what he needs to work on, and I don't see any reason why this offense would be limited with him. If anything, he provides a boost in ways that Jimmy just didn't. I mean, and I wrote this for a roundtable piece for Niners Nation that came out yesterday. that said basically it was Kyle Posey asked all of us what is one area where the offense will improve with Trey Lance, and the first thing that I thought of immediately that I had to like rush to my computer to see if anybody else had written it was downfield passing. Automatically, and so that's what I wrote about. I wrote a few paragraphs on that, and automatically you get a boost in downfield passing. And I posted side by side passing charts from their best game. So for Lance, it would have been against the Texans, and for Jimmy, it would have been like Week 10 versus the Rams at home. And you can look at any Jimmy passing chart from last season and look where all the passes are clustered. 75% of them are clustered between like halfway between the numbers in the hash in the middle of the field to the other halfway point between the numbers in the other hash. So, and you look at Lance, and they rarely target the middle of the field with Lance. Everything is at the numbers downfield. Even middle of the field stuff is downfield 10 or more yards. And you could see it in that Texans game. He's not going to take the easy throw a lot of times. He's going to take the right throw if it's open downfield, and that's hopefully what they're training him to do. He just didn't get that with Jimmy because that's not his thing. They were an efficient offense with Jimmy. I mean, we all saw it, right? I mean, guys are healthy. They win games. Jimmy can be efficient throwing the ball 10 yards or less most of the time. A lot of screen passes, and they're going to move the ball, and they're going to win games and score points. And they almost went to another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But if you look at Shanahan's offenses with quarterbacks that I think Matt Ryan was, before Lance, Matt Ryan was the last one that had an over 9 yards completed air yard. I think it was nine intended air yards per pass, which is like average depth of target.
Yeah.
That year they went to the Super Bowl and they nearly walked out of there with the trophy. But just the defense totally fell in the trash can at that point. But with Trey Lance, you're going to get the same type of throw it down the field offense. They're going to take shots. They're going to take more shots with Lance in probably one season than they took in 3.5 seasons with Jimmy. So that's what he brings automatically. And that's right there, like the ceiling is higher with Lance. Add in all the rushing ability, the zone read, and there's nothing that they can't do next season. It's all and the ability to scramble and make plays with your legs. If you don't like the first or second open read or it isn't there, he can take off and run and make a first down, regroup, and get back on track. Like you couldn't do that with Jimmy. And don't get me wrong. Like Jimmy did a lot of good things. I mean, he moved the ball well in some games.
On third down too. I have to give him that too. On third downs.
Yeah, and I think that was a little more of the scheme, but he was still efficient. I mean, he still hit what he needed to hit, and a lot of quarterbacks don't. So with Lance, you're going to get a little bit more of that. You see it right away in the Texans game. There's a play on a play action. The play action rollout, I think it was in the second drive or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Kittle's the first read. He's in the flat, wide open, and Lance
hit Sherfield.
I'm going to hit Sherfield 12 yards, 13 yards downfield on the sideline. Jimmy takes that throw to Kittle 100% of the time, and there's nothing wrong with that. Kittle probably gets 8 or 9 yards, but
that's the read.
That 8 or 9 yards and the Lance throwing it 13 or 14 yards down the field, that 5 or 6 yard difference is what Lance gives you, and that is the difference in a lot of these games. So it's going to matter when he's the starter, and he's going to provide that boost.
Shout out to Don Burr. Don, Andrew's wearing that Michigan hat for you. Detroit over everything.
I don't think he likes Harbaugh, if I remember correctly. 25th best roster, by the way, in the NFL, Detroit Lions. So shout out Don Burr. Rich, real quick too, just to give you an idea of the kind of the language used for other X factors. The Dolphins X factor, I don't think it's necessarily a shock. It's the quarterback as well, Tua Tagovailoa. A few quarterbacks have been criticized as much as Tagovailoa, the number 5 overall offensive pick, blah, blah, blah. Talks about the 2.3% big-time throw rate, defined as a well-paced passes downfield or in tight windows, ranks 30th out of 32 qualifying quarterbacks. But then it ends with the Dolphins have done a good job surrounding him with more talent this offseason. Now it's time for him to produce in a make or break year. And it's like,
come on.
Like why
He's
is that
Tua.
why is that not mentioned for Trey Lance though? Why are we not mentioning, oh, but Trey Lance has weapons, he could look good? But no, it's the floor lowered for Trey Lance. But for some reason, Tua gets this bump. We know what Tua is at this point, and maybe he'll show us a little more with Tyreek Hill, who knows. But why is he getting a quote-unquote, I'm not going to say a bump, but a quote-unquote bump when Trey Lance has George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk around him? He has that talent that Tua also has.
Run blocking. I mean, I don't know. Maybe those guys like Tua. I don't know. I don't think what we've seen how many games with Tua, and we still really don't have a good idea of what he is or what to expect at this point. I mean, after Justin Herbert's rookie season, we knew right away that this kid was going to be special. Pat Mahomes, same thing. We knew he was going to be special. Trey Lance has the same exact trajectory. Hopefully, the way people were talking, he could be the next top 5 quarterback. With Tua, I mean, this kind of feels like Jameis's career in the beginning. We just don't really know what he's gonna. I'm sorry, Andrew. We don't even really know what Jameis. I think this is just what Jameis is. I think that's who he is. But
you mean a 17 touchdown, 3 interception type guy? Yeah,
he was doing good last year.
That's what Jameis is.
I mean, maybe a Mike McDaniel scheme and adding Tyreek Hill is all the difference that Tua needed. But I don't know. Quarterbacks don't often make a big leap like that from one year to the next.
It's kind of who they are, right? Like, it doesn't really feel like the scheme. They're not gonna change things up for him. They're not gonna all of a sudden turn him into a downfield passer. Everything's gonna kind of turn into Tyreek's gonna turn into that Deebo guy. I'm interested to see what's going on with Waddle, who had a great year, last year with Tua. But yeah, it feels like when you look at this roster list. And, we can get out of here because it's Friday and I'm going to let you guys go. This is almost 48 minutes in here. Also, for everybody.
It doesn't matter.
Well, I actually want to get to, there's 2 shows that I'm on, The Boys, and I'm watching this show on HBO called The Baby. That's actually pretty good too, actually. So I want to get to that or whatever. But the thing is it feels like this PFF list is projecting what they believe the Dolphins will be, as opposed to not projecting what they believe the 49ers roster will be, which is, I feel, easier to project because you have a coach who you understand what's going to happen. And there's so many people that will agree with you that Trey Lance walked right into the right situation. Not even Trevor Lawrence, not Zach Wilson, not Justin Fields, Mac Jones, maybe. But Trey Lance walked right into the right situation. And the problem is that you're not projecting them in the same way. And it's hard for me to sit here, not even biased as a 49er fan, but just biased as an NFL fan. Like, dude, the 49ers were a few plays away from being in the Super Bowl this past year. And yeah, they lost some players. Everybody does. There's roster turnover. But the 49ers largely are bringing back their team, and they've added people that will help in different ways. So I think that's kind of where we are when it comes to all of this stuff. And I do think that they do get a bump because of their running back group. Mostert, Chase Edmonds, Myles Gaskin. I understand that portion of it, but at the same time, you still don't know. Mike McDaniel did that with the 49ers. Mike McDaniel did that with the 49ers roster. Mike McDaniel did that with Kyle Shanahan around. Can Mike McDaniel do that on his own now is the part that we're going to find out. And it's hard for me to predict that when you've already got a track record of Kyle Shanahan doing that with whoever it is that he's doing with.
Yeah.
Good.
I just agree with everything you said. I think I've decided with this PFF list business, I'm going to start making just lists at this point. I think I was going to start with like the top 10 Niners of all time, have Jerry Rice at 2, and then just like list the guy who found the most gold during the gold rush as number 1, just to get Niner fans to yell at me. I was thinking about doing like top 10 Williams in the NFL, ranking Javonte Williams 1 and just leaving Trent off the list.
Javonte though, hey,
yeah.
if you go ahead and you make Javonte the number one, man, you're
number
not
one
getting
Williams in the
pushback from
NFL.
me.
Yeah. So I think I want to get in because honestly, man, I'm in this content game for the retweets. Just fully honest, and it hasn't worked yet. It's a long con, Jason. So I'm just gonna make
people just don't get your humor.
Yeah, nobody gets my humor. I tweet like I had 100 followers where I just tweet things that make me laugh, and I don't care what anybody else thinks, and it doesn't work as well anymore. But I'm just gonna start. I like this list business, so I think I might get into this business a little more.
Okay. Well,
top 10 Madrid, Spain 2, Rich Madrid 1.
I mean, yeah. But who would argue with that?
Nobody.
Like that's not something that you would argue.
Maybe the country of Spain because they don't really get the Rich Madrid humor.
Rich Madrid number 1, Real Madrid number 2, Madrid Spain number 3.
Yes.
Now get worked.
Yeah,
now get cooked.
And I think actually Real Madrid. No, I don't think Real Madrid got him. Somebody got. I need to know just in case Spain yells at Rich for my list. You need to watch the Sadio Mane tape, Rich. You got to get on it. He just moved. I think he just went to Bayern Munich, I believe, off the top of my head.
He's talking soccer, Rich.
Kick his ass out.
The extent of my soccer
talking soccer with Rich. I love it.
Occasionally going to a Sounders game.
Hey, that's fun. It's good fun. I went to one.
They're fun to go to. They're really fun. I watch them on TV sometimes, and I don't know. I never got into the European leagues. I can't get up at 4 a.m. to watch a game.
Well, it's 7, Rich. Come on, man.
Whatever.
All right.
I just assumed you woke up before to grind the tape, Rich. I also when I was in Seattle, I went to
most nights I get off work so late. Most nights I'm not going to bed till 3 or 4. Man.
There you go.
I also went to a Mariners Angels game up in Seattle. It was pretty cool. I was I was excited to meet somebody.
I'm sorry, man. My sister came back from Germany and brought COVID for literally the entire house. So.
How are you gonna get mad? How are you gonna get mad at him for getting COVID?
I was messing, Rich.
I was like,
I'm very excited to go up to Seattle.
I told him, I'm like, hey, man, I tested positive like early that week, and I was like, fuck, because I like basically no symptoms, and I'm like, if I test negative on Saturday, I'm fucking going.
Yeah, and I was excited, I'm very excited. Next time I go up there, we're gonna go up there again.
I woke up psyched. I woke up pumped. I was like, I'm going to meet Andrew today. Took a test. It was more positive than the first one. And I was like, shit.
How is it more positive?
I'm like, well, if I test negative on Monday, I'll meet you for lunch before I have to go to work. Woke up Monday. Sure as shit thought I was going to test negative. Tested positive.
Was the pink line like darker?
It was.
Is that how it was more positive? Okay, so that's how.
They say that the darker the line, the more viral load you're carrying.
I did not know. We're learning about COVID.
Gotta watch out for those loads.
I had no symptoms and I was past my 5-day quarantine, so I had to go to work. So
all right, well, 52 minutes in, I think we should call it here. Shout out to everybody who tapped in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Andrew and I do the Sprint Right Option podcast once a week, twice a week, here and there. Make sure you're subscribed to that anywhere that you get your audio podcast. Rich, promote all the stuff that you have going on. I know that you have your own Substack, and you're still doing Niners Nation stuff. Talk about it.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter. It's right there on the screen. That is my Twitter handle. Niners Nation, Acme Packing Company. I get paid to cover the Packers, and this season I'm going to. And basically this summer, I'm trying to get maybe a little subscription-based 49ers content coverage off the ground. So we'll see how that goes. If that doesn't work, no big deal. Gave it a shot. So it's westcoastfootball.substack.com. I'm working on something for it this weekend.
I love it. Check it out. Check it out right now before he makes you pay for it. Definitely check it out right now before he makes you pay for it.
And football zebras during the season, covering the rules, everybody's favorite topic.
There you go, covering the rules. So for Andrew, for Rich, for myself, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your holiday, guys. And we're getting closer and closer to football. So
Andrew Pasquini, celebrate my country's heritage by blowing a little piece of it up.
Exactly. Wow, what a good what is it? Whatever it is that you've got planned, Homer, count me out. Rich is the only one who gets my Simpsons references. Andrew, I'll let you set me up for the usual outro. Go for it.
I really hope Rich responds with "Go Pack, go!" Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners. Welcome everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason.